Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. It's good to be back, both Jake and Justin on the mics today, and back with you all for I wouldn't call it a bonus episode, Justin, but we've been used to putting out two a week, and we just could not do it for you all. And if you missed the first one this week, we did one with the Soccer Dad Pod, which you should definitely go check out if you haven't already. It was really fun, kind of getting to know each other a little bit more, getting to know a little bit of our backstories with Justin. We haven't talked overly much about on the show, as well as getting to some of the hot button, I'd say most pressing, controversial, hot take city topics. It was fun.
Yeah, the Soccer Dad Pod guys rock. We recorded that at Maggie O's, and they have a couple different connections throughout St. Louis. So we told them that we'd have him back on coming in the next sometime down the road this season, and then we'll be doing it at the pitch. But we'll keep you guys posted on that. But have the episode in our link tree if you can't find it, but you can also go to their socials and find it there. But had a great time with them. I also want to give a big shout out to Jake's son Will. Just turned one this week, and I made my own little candy bag for anybody that can see on my way out because I am also a child and I wanted some candy to go.
Aren't we all? Well, happy birthday to Will. He is one now officially. It boggles my mind because I think when he was born, Justin, it was when I think we were playing the Union Omaha in the Open Cup, and I think you did a solo episode, and he was born. I know we went to a game really early on when he was super young, which was borderline regrettable, but it was fun to say that we did that. And now he's a year in, and I think this club is better off for it. They've ultimately I think been really positive. So Will hasn't lived in a year without St. Louis City SC, which I think is pretty cool. But this club is now in its second year. And Justin, we're now officially in our second year of podcasting and doing ball watching. So 2 years in, a lot of experience, a lot of good feedback from everyone. And I think we're continuing to evolve this game like we're about to do with Goal Vision.
Yeah, I would say on this one, just to kind of give a quick agenda setting, as Jake already mentioned, is we're going to kick it off with the goals that happened in the Sporting Kansas City game, break down all three of those for us. And then also we're going to a lot of different stats. I think that's one that we really wanted to cover was I feel like there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of complaints by some listeners and some fans just on how we're playing so far. So really want to kind of bring that and look at it holistically within the league and see how we're sitting, not just in the table, but how we're playing and comparing stats wise. And then we got a couple of listener questions as well. So I think it'll be a pretty fun and light episode.
Yeah, good table setting, Justin. So let's get into the goals. I actually have every goal that was scored clipped in here, and I don't expect to talk about all of them in much detail because there were 6 of them, and some of them more talkable or more, worthy of analysis than others. So let's pull those up. And for anyone tuning in on podcast, I will say for you all, this is definitely going to be an episode where I really, really, really encourage you to go check out on YouTube. We obviously show our faces on YouTube, and I feel like increasingly we've been showing a lot more video content as well and breaking it down that way. So if you haven't already, or if you need to be swayed, this is me selling it to you. This is a good way to look at some of these goals and kind of take what we say and overlay that onto what's actually happening or transpiring on the pitch. So this is Goal Vision. We've been doing this for, at least a couple of games, and this game was full of goals. So we might as well take a double click into them. So we'll start with the first one, Justin. Obviously, we go down early-ish in this game. I think the goal is going to be scored in the 17th minute here. And you can see where I'm starting this. We have the ball, in our own, I'd say kind of getting into the second third, the middle third of the field. And I'll just kind of hit play for you. We're knocking it around. It comes to Tim Parker, who hits a one-time pass, which we've known him to do, right to Totlund, who it's a misplayed pass. I think it is their left back that jumps it and lays it into Shallowy, who does a quick little touch, a little flick by Durkin, who's man tight, just a little bit late to him, I think. And Shallowy has clear running in. Sorry, no, it's still a left back who plays it in for Polito. So now just let me pause here, Justin. This is an example of transition defense here. We've given up the ball cheaply, I would say. And now we've got, Shallowy, their left back, getting up into the attack. We've got Polito and we've got Agata to our basically even numbers, I would say. Justin, how are you feeling right now? Let's just say you're Hebert here, right? Because we see Hebert starting to step, Tim Parker running already towards goal because he made that bad pass and he's been beat. What do you think here?
I think you're already stressing out a little bit in the fact that you're kind of watching Tim Parker after he makes that pass. He has to kind of wait for them to come at him because obviously Totland is up the field and a little bit out of position. So as he does, then they play it into Alan Polito. And then, like you said, right where we have a pause right now, that's where we have Hebert. And this is where I think the mistake is made, Jake. Hebert has his hips open to the right, and which I think is good. But then when the pass gets played into the middle to Agata, that's when Hebert completely turns around. And then I don't think that's where you do. I think you open your hips and play Agata because when he's turning around, he loses sight of the ball. And Agata plays a one-time pass back to Alan Polito. Hebert doesn't even still know where the ball is. So he does a half turn to his right with his back completely up the field facing the goal. And then when the ball plays one time back into Polito, he does another half turn to the left. But at that point, it's already too late.
Yeah, this is right. Because I love how you said that, Justin, because I feel like in this situation, Hebert's placed correctly. Agata is not his man here. I think he's going to run with Polito because Tim Parker's way out of position at this point. So if Polito is on this ball, you're going to push him towards the opposite corner. No, sorry, the nearest corner to you. You're going to push him away from the goal. So he's set up like that. And then you see that pass played and he turns to address Agata when I really just think he could have done the simple thing and just stuck with his runner and Polito, but doesn't, gets his hips turned, opens up Polito for that pass in. Polito, I mean, you got to tip your cap. That's a good finish past Berkey. I don't think he has any chance there. Justin, any final thoughts on that goal?
No, I mean, once he's in, I think Berkey's in a good position. We've seen Berkey make a lot of those saves. He kind of goes halfway down. He's got his knee to the ground and then his left leg outstretched, but it's a great finish into the side netting, but nothing Berkey can do on this one.
Yep, I agree. So I think right there, bad giveaway, transition defense. And I think you want in that situation Hebert to probably stick to the runner and not get turned using his hips and communicate with his teammates, who's got who in this situation. All right, second goal, the equalizer for St. Louis City. This has been a popular one to look at over the course of the week. I put in some kind of precursor content to it because this ball was there to be won, bouncing up in the air, heading back and forth. Tim Parker finally gets it and heads it deep into the attacking third. And that puts Durkin in with two Sporting Kansas City defenders. And he just bodies. This one gets overshadowed by the Klaus one because the Klaus one was otherworldly. But Durkin lays the lumber on the sidelines against his left back and wins the ball fair, clean, and oh my God, lays it off for Rasmus Alm. We talk about Rasmus Alm, who's a guy that can stretch the game, plays very vertically. In this, I want to highlight, he's also, I think, technically a great passer of the ball. And here you can see what he's doing, right? Because you see Celio in the middle of the field, making that run centrally. I think he pulls up a little bit too early as Rasmus goes to play that ball. But guess who's not stopping his run? That is Klaus on the back post, who kind of sees what's happening. If I back up a little bit, you can see him. This ball is nowhere near him, but he knows just to get in the box. And I love that from him. And he follows that run, gets in front of his man. Look at this too, Justin. Did you catch this when you were watching too? The way he throws his body in front of the defender to cut him off of that play and not make it a 50-50 and then have the wherewithal for the near post finish. What do you think about this one?
He would not have been able to get there if he didn't do that last step in front of the defender. If you rewind it back, Jake, and I know it's tough to do it live, but
yeah,
the win by Parker descended deep. There was definitely a communication error between the center back and the left back of Sporting Kansas City, and that allows Durkin to then really get in there. They don't know who's going to win it, what they're going to do with it.
Yep.
Durkin just absolutely bodies this guy. Lay off back to Alm. It almost seems like then you're going to recirculate the ball there. When I was like, all right, let's keep it. Perfect one-time ball from Alm. He is looking for Celio, but Celio doesn't think that he's going to be able to play that ball one time, so he does stop his run. If you let this play through, if you watch Alm, he gets a little pissed at Celio. He throws his arms up. He's like, why did you stop the run? That's a perfect ball.
Yeah,
the way that he played it, he's throwing his arms up at it. Like, why did you stop? But the way that he played it with his right foot, it curls on the right side of the field, curls out away from the goalkeeper, so allows time for Klaus to come around, have a great one-time finish. And I'm very happy, like you said, Jake, you called it out perfectly earlier. Klaus is just already seeing that there is no one on that backside, and the backside or the entire box is wide open, and he just knows he needs to get there, and he fights off the defender last minute and does a great one-time finish.
100%. That's a great striker's instinct. I give Klaus a lot of credit on that goal, and Alm for just playing a dangerous ball into a dangerous space. All right, let's get into the third goal of the match, and it was ours once again. Starts from deep. And I want to talk about this one too, because again, I talked about Alm just a second ago. This is a very speculative ball that Durkin plays. I mean, just a lofted long ball hanging in the air. Alms again got two defenders right in front of him. They had the better positioning. All he has to do here, in my opinion, and he does it, is just disrupt them enough. And he does. One goes down, one kind of has to jump over him, and they clear it. It's a bad clearance. It goes, actually, it's an okay clearance, but what happens? I'm laughing here because I'm watching the Clouds once again. But it's a ball that Totland's really marking tight on his man, makes it very hard for him to get a good first touch, which frees up Klaus, who sees that loose touch coming. And you can see him just close the gap really quickly here. And boom. I mean, guy just throws that shoulder in. There's been a lot of debate on social media if this has been a fair challenge or not. VAR said no. Most forums or analysis for MLS said no. I say no. You say no. The people have spoken. Anyone wants to say anything otherwise, you are now ostracized. You are wrong. This is a challenge that Klaus lays in, and this makes the goal happen, Justin. You dictate for us in real time here. I mean, he runs with the ball. This is the last thing I'm going to call out, Justin, here. This is special for me. I'm going to pause it. Klaus runs with the ball centrally, kind of gets it to a dangerous spot. Celio comes onto it. He lays it for Celio. And then Klaus, instead of just running into the box and causing havoc, he chooses to overlap Celio, who causes his right back, I believe it's Jake Davis at the time, to kind of respect both Celio and Klaus enough so that Celio creates space and rips an absolute banger right beneath the crossbar. Tim Melia, no freaking chance. I thought this goal was special. Again, I think a lot of it created by Klaus, winning ball, but it starts with Alm as well. There's a lot. This is a good team goal, in my opinion. This kind of amplifies what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this was a great team goal, and I will say that was body to body with Klaus. I agree. The initial dump ball didn't really seem like there was much of a chance there, but it's fine. Let's get up the field, move up there. Klaus going shoulder to shoulder. Same thing with Durkin, and JB Goodbody put it in here. Seems like Durkin plays 15 pounds heavier. Klaus on this play was a 300-pound bowling ball and just did absolutely side by side. If you guys haven't seen, the City Refs put together a good little promo on that, and like have that guy like stutter stepping all the way back to the weight room. And they talked about it too on the MLS show on Apple, and they did side by side there with Sasha Kleshkin. But I will say, so once Klaus wins that, I love that he then says, I'm going to get around Celio, causing the defender to have to, and like you said, I had to make a decision. And once Celio takes that first touch on the inside with his right foot, it's already too late for them. That guy cutting in from the left, that's why we put him out there. Him on the left, and typically Indy on the right. You let these guys cut in with their dominant foot so they can play curler shots like this. And it was an absolute banger of the shot. You could already see Klaus celebrating over in the corner before it even hits the back of the net. And I thought it was an incredible shot by Celio and a great team goal, and especially one that we talked about with Klaus. A lot of times, especially last year, you see him give that ball up and then just try to make a darting run into the box, throw his arms up when he didn't get it. Completely different mindset right here, where he takes the time to do an overlap, which if he was given the ball, would have been on his left foot. He would not have shot the ball. So I love to see that he was actually willing to trust and give Celio a chance there, and he put it away.
Yeah, you can see him gesturing towards it. Spike in the comments telling me that where Celio should take the shot. And I love it. The leadership from him. And people talk about his body language. Look at that. Just being freaking stoked for a teammate and creating that goal for him. I love it. Justin, I'll let you lead here on the fourth goal of the game. So this is Sporting's equalizer. And they knotted up at 2-2 because you talked a lot about set pieces, Justin. What did you see here?
So this is one that, and I'm trying to remember the initial foul here, but we talked about it. So to set the scene,
it was a dumb one. It was a dumb one.
Probably 25 yards out from the 18. It's like, all right, it's not a shot that's going to be on goal, but we've talked about it. Then you have probably, if we count between City and Kansas City, there's probably 10 to 12 guys at the top of the box running in towards Roman Berkey. And this is where it's tough for Rome. When you think about a great goalkeeper and saving a lot of shots, when you have this many bodies and a ball being thrown into a mixer like that, there's nothing he can do but wait and watch and then have to react. So this ball that's played in is a pretty decent ball. It's more of a driven ball, just kind of like a floater that continues to drift into the back post. Who gets up for it here? Is it Klaus that we
it's
try
Klaus.
to? Klaus gets up and tries to win the header. And I think what he does there to flick it on is fine. I don't think he could have got up any higher to try to head it out. So he just tries to help it along so it doesn't just fall to a Sporting Kansas City player. Unfortunately, he flicks it to Sporting Kansas City. They try to get the cross in. I do think that Rome could have done a little bit better with this cross after they take it. So he takes it down off the chest here. What is that? The outside of the right foot. So he's not shooting it. He's trying to get it across. And I think it throws Roman off, and he tries to go up and grab it, but he ends up
Yeah.
tipping it, and it falls into our own net in the back post.
I agree. Justin, my only thing, and I'm just going to go to you quickly here, is could we be doing anything different with the back post defending on shallow E here? Because I feel like I could tell you where this ball is going. And I know what Klaus trying to do, heading it out for the corner. He's not expecting him to be behind him. And I know you're very far out here, but I feel like I would like someone either right now or right after it's taken to be aware of shallow E on that back post.
Yeah, I would agree with that one, Jake. I didn't realize. So we have, if anybody's not seeing this, we have one marking shallow E on the far side. And I understand that's the furthest point from the ball. So probably think a 60-yard ball, but obviously it gets there. And the ball is going to be going in that direction anyways. I think Totland needs to be a lot tighter and needs to be actually marking him. We have Celio up here in no man's land. Like, if anything, if we need to drop Celio a little further back, that allows AZ to drop back and take somebody in front of the top of the box. Obviously, we don't need AZ going into the box. He's one of the shortest guys in the field. But if we need to push everybody else back one person, I would say anybody that's making a run into the box needs to be marked, and Shallowy was not, and ends up leading to the goal.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, and this is another angle at that back post. I mean, he's just so free there. You do feel like we could have been better positioned to defend that. And Berkey, I agree with you, probably could have done better. Then he would tell you the same. This Justin absolutely makes my skin crawl. Another painful goal to concede. Look where they are on the field. They are so deep in their own half. This is nothing. They're just in build-up mode. And this is again, I'll say speculative. And I say speculative because this guy's not thinking this is going to happen like this. But I believe their center back, Fontas, is getting some light pressure from Klaus and decides just to lump it long. And you're like, okay, we should be able to handle this. It's driven a little bit more than I think we thought. And it beats both center backs. And I'll get to why. Tommy runs in on it. Hebert not quick enough to close down. And it's buried. Here's my problem, Justin. The ball's already been played. Now we have a different view of the back line. If I go back just a little bit, you can see Tommy at the point of contact just kind of hanging off of Parker's shoulder. If Parker is the line, he's offsides. But look, if you just kind of can look at the shading of the grass and where Marcanic is and where Totland is versus where Parker and Hebert are, Hebert a little bit ahead of Parker, the back line has got to be in sync here for these long balls that are just over the top. You are going to get killed if your guys in the back line are not on the same, level or, longitudinal level on that field. Because if they're not, you risk playing these strikers like to hang off the shoulders of your center backs on sides. And that's exactly what happens here. And Eric Tommy does his best to get in and makes another good finish. That to me is preventable.
I would say that, and I would say of all of this, I completely agree. I'd say one, the line needs to be the exact same all the way across. But I'm a little frustrated here, Jake, when watching this and kind of playing it back a couple times. The ball is in the air. I don't see Parker even take a step back until it's already at the half line. Yep. And he is too slow by that point. I mean, look, he's already created, Eric Tommy, he's already created 15-yard space between him and Parker. That's Parker's guy. I don't care if he's off your back shoulder or not. Him and Hebert know, and they're communicating on the field right now. And you can leave Shallowy, who's already offsides. Like, we don't even have to worry about that. But between him and Hebert first year said, hey, Tim, coming your way. And Tim doesn't even get a body on this guy. I think you cannot just let him run freely into this. And they don't drop quick enough at all. You look at Totland, he gets to turn his hips completely. He's not even moving backwards, so the ball's already over his head. And I think as a team, when you see a ball about to come, when we were learning this in the academy, when Kevin Kalish was huge on this, I think now we kind of go away from it. But we'd always used to say, like, long ball when it was about to come, just so we'd all drop at the same time and then re-step at the same time. These guys are completely not in sync. When you look at this, and I would say Hebert tries to do a catch up here, but Tim Parker doesn't have his hips turned correctly at all. Neither does Totland, and they're just very surprised by this long ball, which doesn't make sense to me. When you're playing that high of a line, you need to understand that the open space is behind you, and that's where the opposition is looking to put it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. If VAR drew these lines right now, this is where I feel like you understand again why having that line in sync is so important, because that line being in sync means this goal is offsides. And that's how you should be able to play together. Last goal, Justin, the equalizer. Totland coming through for the boys. Starts on a goal kick. Thought pretty interesting from Tim Melia. We win the first ball via Durkin, who heads it straight up in the air. Thorson does a good job challenging for the second one. He's kind of double teamed here in the middle. and gets it on to Celio, who takes one pass, one touch, important for me. He doesn't take the time to settle it. One touch into your man, Klaus, your target hold-up striker, who does a little flick, tries to flick it onto AZ. It's a good flick, but Shallowy is first to it, and here's where it gets fun. I don't know what AZ would have done with the ball had it arrived at his foot. Doesn't matter because it didn't. Shallowy pokes it away from him, expecting that to cut the danger out right into the path of the on-running Thomas Toland. I mean, look at where he is on the field when this whole thing starts to happen. He is 30 yards away from this play right now. But I think, again, it's this instinct to see what's going on and to be a part of it. And look, he continues his run. He keeps running, and he's there for a 50-50 challenge. And what he does here is that perfect little lift over the foot of the on-rushing defender, gets it over him, keeps his composure, doesn't go down. And what a cool finish into the far post from your right back as well. People forget that. I mean, this guy isn't a winger. He is a right back that can get forward, and he shows so much wherewithal in this moment to me. And this is why he's been such an impactful player for us. You know, not just this goal, but the way that he carries himself. It was incredible to me. I mean, we deserved this equalizer, but how it happened, I mean, definitely a little unfortunate for City, but we make the most of that fortune. Justin, we talk about finishing, being lethal, taking your opportunities. This is that.
I was absolutely shocked that he was getting up the field that high. I understand that we're down and we need an equalizer, but look where he is right now, Jake, on where you have the still image. Yeah. He's in our half, almost on the backside of the full circle. And as this plays out, he starts to read it, sees that there's a lot of open space, just how Klaus did on our first goal. And he's like, I'm going to go fill this space. And right here, when you look at this, if this is a still image for everybody looking, there's absolutely no way that he's going to win this 50-50 ball. He's got a good 15 yards. The defender is probably 3 or 4 yards from it. However, the way that the ball was played, it's curling away from the defender and allows Toland to pick up some speed, a cheeky little touch, extremely composed, and then slash one home to tie it, and just an absolutely much-needed point for the boys.
God, it was huge. I mean, what a sword to the heart for the Sporting Kansas City fans. And yeah, did that feel bad? I'm sure it did. But did that feel unwarranted? It should not have been. For anyone that was watching that game, I think we were the better team by far on that field. And just to get a result and grind it out that way, and again, gain points from a losing position, which is something this team has been doing fantastic so far this season, I was happy. I was happy about that. So very excited about that, Justin. I know we wanted to spend some time doing goal vision, but you also mentioned too, there's been some great thought pieces and, you know, statistical, you know, analyses put out recently as we've gotten deeper, you know, a quarter of the way into the MLS season, which is crazy at this point. But I wanted to point out a couple, and I wanted you and I to kind of talk about these just to kind of paint the picture. And I think my main point here for anyone listening is, yes, the results themselves haven't been amazing. They definitely could have been worse, and they definitely could have been better. But what I'm most excited about, if anything, is two things. One, this team's ability to be resilient, and two, the underlying numbers behind this team and the evolution of some of the players and the playing style as well. Because those things for me, that's long ball. We are playing long ball in those situations, and not long ball in the field. I'm saying that we're looking more holistically at how we can be better as a team in the future. And I think you're seeing the underpinnings of that begin in this season. Do you have anything to say about that, Justin, before we hop into the first one?
No, that's right. I do think that when we were looking at these stats, I'm like, all right, I understand that we're kind of middle of the table when you look at it. I mean, to date, we have 12 points. We are 9th in the Western Conference. I would say if we had 12 points, it'd put us very similarly 9th in the Eastern Conference as well. So a little bit, I would say, on the lower end of where you see yourselves in the MLS standings. However, when you look at this from a stats perspective and some of these graphics that we're going to pull up here, this team is, I would say, slightly underperforming from a stats perspective. A lot of these stats we're pulling up, we're in the top 5, top 10 teams, and we're just not seeing it from a points perspective. And I think that's because we're getting a lot of these draws. But I would say of all the things, that's why we wanted to have this episode, is this is kind of a silver lining for us.
Agreed. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was how often do teams get on the ball in the penalty area? This is from Ben Wright on Twitter. And the reason this is important is obviously you want to have the ball in dangerous positions. If you can have the ball in the opponent's 18, you're probably generating chances. And the more of those touches you have in the game, I'd say generally the more you consider that team to be, you know, chance creators, attacking, dangerous. And if you look at that for all teams, from this year so far, and this is not including this match week where we're not playing, City is number 3 in the league behind DC at number 2 and Atlanta at number 1 with 26.7 touches in the penalty area per game. No, sorry, not per game. This is total. No, hold on. No, this is per game because 26 is definitely a per game stat. So all that to say, I'm looking at teams around this. We're surrounded by some good company. LAFC in the top 5, LA Galaxy in the top 10, Minnesota in the top 10, Columbus, Seattle, Miami, all in that upper echelon, and we're above all of them. And that's good. To me, that doesn't scream that you'll be successful, but that tells me that we're getting the ball in dangerous areas. Guess who's second last? Sporting Kansas City. Guess who didn't have many shots at all besides the goals they scored against us? Kansas City.
Yeah, and I would say just to add one last piece to this, Jake, I obviously it's not an end-all be-all stat, and that's what all these, but you need to take them all into consideration when we're addressing these things, and you'll see consistency with this. And these teams that are in the bottom of these stats are also bottom of the table. So we thought these were kind of the ones that we should be calling out. And it's not going to say, hey, if you're leading in a stat like this, you're top of the table either, because we've talked about it. If you look at like Atlanta and DC, who are 1 and 2 in this stat, they are respectively 8 and 9 in the Eastern Conference. But that's just one stat that we're going to look at, and that we'll continue to look through the rest of them as we talk.
And what do you want to see, Justin? Those two teams score goals, and we score goals, and that's what you want to see as a fan. Next thing we're going to go to is 2023 versus 2024 sort of evolution, and the metric they use here is goals added. This is a new one for the show. We have not gotten into this one, and we're not going to get deep on it at all. But what does it tell us? Goals added kind of clues us in on how well a team is playing without being too fixated on points, goals, XG. So really, what is that stat? How do you measure it? I have an example here. So at the moment a player receives the ball at midfield, their team might have a 1.5 percent chance of scoring on that possession, but also 1% chance of conceding on the next possession. That situation really isn't very valuable to the ball at midfield. So if they play a through ball from there into the final third, their team is now in a much better situation and might have a 6% chance of scoring and only a 0.5% chance of conceding. The way they do that is they quantify those chances, they take out the difference, and they subtract what it was before that and what it was after the fact. And right there, you would get a goals added of 0.05. So that's not important. How you get goals added, how you tick and tie this is by shooting, receptions, so receiving passes, take-ons, miscontrols, dispossessions, tackles, fouls committed, fouls received. All to say goals added is a good thing. You want to have a good goals added percentage. And it really takes for us, if I'm looking at this visual right now, this is from 2023 to 2024. So if you're not looking at this right now visually, you see a streaking kind of line, one from where you were in 2023 and your logo at where you are this year in 2024 so far. And there's quadrants. On the top left, there's good attack, bad defense. So the y-axis is attacking goals added for. The x-axis is defense, goals added against. And like I said, top left is good attack, bad defense. Bottom left is where you don't want to be. Bad attack, bad defense. That's where teams like Austin live and breathe today. And then the bottom right is bad attack, but good defense. And the top right is your cash cow, your good attack, your good defense. Let me tell you this, Justin. I love this because I look at this graphic and you got to check it out visually. I love where we've come from because where we've come from is where Sporting Kansas City is today. And where we are is making inroads into that upper right quadrant where you see teams like Atlanta, you see teams like Vancouver, you see teams like Minnesota and Seattle and LAFC who are all going to be pushing towards the end of the season into that contender conversation. But you also see teams like the Galaxy, and like you and I look at that and we get it, right? Because they're so exciting to watch. Great attack, but defense, man. I mean, our game was 3-3. They play with fire on that back line. So any thoughts on this, Justin, looking at this visual?
I'd say this visual is awesome when you look at it. I think one of the main ones to call out, like you said, Jake, is you don't want to be in the bottom left. And look at where Austin is and so their initial spot was getting closer to like the middle of the axis, which is probably just like average on both sides, offensively and defensively. And that's really where we were last year. If you look at that, we're almost dead center of the graphic. And I think that's a fine place to be. Obviously, we made it to the playoffs. We didn't make a big push there, but you do not want to be falling down to the bottom left. You want to be going up into the upper right, and that's where our trajectory is. You look at us, DC, and Atlanta. really improving upon these stats as of last year. And if you are looking at this, if this is kind of a lot going on, the higher up you are on the graph, the better you are offensively. So we're going almost more straight up. I'd like us to see a little bit go more to the right. When you look at like New York Red Bulls, one of the best defensive teams in the league so far this year, they're losing a little bit of scoring on the offensive side, but good God, they are far and away one of the best teams in the MLS when it comes to defense, second to only or the only team that's right kind of close to them would be Cincinnati, which makes sense. Shout out Kip Keller on that back line with Matt Miazga as well. But this is a pretty cool graphic, not just visually, but thinking about it stats-wise. And just taking if you look at each of these individually, it's cool to see where these teams have come in the past year.
I agree. And to me, it passes the eye test too, because where you're seeing these teams place in these quadrants, like just take us, for example. I know that we've progressed, and that we've progressed specifically in how we can be with the ball. Not just against the ball. Against the ball, we know who this team is, and this team hasn't changed. But with the ball, I think we've proven to be a little more adept this year, a little more adaptable. In certain games, there's definitely been games where we haven't been as good with it. But better than last year, where I know that if we're going to play a low block or if we're going to be down a goal or two, we have a chance to come back and we can create as well, not just based on our off-the-ball actions. And I think this says that to me. So I love it. And I agree. I want to see us move further right and improve our defensive statistics as well, because I think those have been, if anything, the lagging part for us this year. A couple cool call-outs, Justin. These are specific ones that are mentioned in this article from The Athletic, is that we are allowing opponents 1.7 meters less progress upfield per possession this year. We're winning 6% more ball recoveries than last season, and we have a 27% increase in our open play crossing volume, probably from adding Totlin. I would have to guess, because it's been great. And that's helped grow our per game chance creation, which we just talked about, from 9.2 to a healthier 12.1. And you're seeing that coming through with how many more shots we're creating and just how many more dangerous chances we're creating. But who's creating those chances in our attacking sequences? Justin, I loved this graphic because it does highlight the differences in some of your forward players, as well as who's really helping facilitate build-up. What stuck out to you here?
The one thing that stuck out to me, Jake, honestly, is I know you expect for Klaus and Dinrian to be up there for most shots. I will say, I don't know if showing that Sam has 4.2 shots per game kind of tells you that he probably doesn't need to be ripping all of those, because they're not all good chances. But really what stuck out to me, Jake, is Ostrak. We kind of talked about him already. 2.5, and this is open play ending in sequences per 90. So per each game, he's doing a buildup for us of 2.5 per game, which is by far the most in our team, second to Indy. And I think those guys are really the glue that's kind of created these chances for us. Those are the guys that are not getting on the stat sheet for assists or goals, but it's something that they are extremely important in our buildup, and getting it up to a Sam Dinniran or a Klaus or a Celio Pompeo to actually do the finishing ability. So I wanted to give a quick call out to Ostrak with 2.5 and Indy for 2.2.
I couldn't agree more. That's a great call out. It also, to me, even highlights, because Klaus and Dinniran are on about par when it comes to shot ending sequences they've been involved in, but in what capacity is the interesting part, because Klaus is a little bit more than his counterpart Dinniran on the build-up sequence, which you'd imagine, right? Because he can hold the ball. He likes to bring their teammates into it, like we saw Celio on that goal against Kansas City. Dinniran, not as much, but he's going to be on the end of those shots in those sequences, which is why you see his shots being more. So I love to see that. I like what you're called on Ostrak and Vassilev. I love the balance you see of Chris Durkin, who has shots, chances created, and build up all as part of his sequences. And I want to see Celio's numbers, I think, tick up a little bit more. I think that makes sense for those two. And I want to see Alm, now that we're getting more of a sample size of him as well. I think you'll see a lot more of that chance created in his repertoire, and I think even build up as well. But again, this really does flex, like you said, on the Ostrak of this all. What does he bring to the team? He is significant in your build up, and if we had a healthy Leuven, he'd be right up there with you as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. Bradley, a nice call out here. He said Celio chance created makes a lot of sense. He's been so solid. Celio has the second most in chance created on the team, just right behind Klaus. So I think he has been just as important to this team as anybody else so far.
Okay. This is another evolution graphic here, Justin, I found that was pretty cool. It's transitional styles in and out of possession, just kind of taking the y-axis of passes per defensive action. So basically, how good are you on the press? And then direct attacks per 90. How quick can you make it hurt and take it, the other direction? And City, I think, places in the good quadrant here, right, where you have a high press intensity and you do a lot of counterattacking. And I think we're where we are. And again, this is something you got to look at visually. The teams far out on the right are teams that do press and that are teams that counter ruthlessly, like LAFC. That countering is really one of the bigger parts of their game. RSL is again a perfect example of that. Like Arango just prints money on the counter attack, but I don't think that's really us, especially with a guy like Klaus. We're not the ones that have speed downfield necessarily, unless you're playing that type of style with a Dinnerand, for example, and you're going fully in on that. So you don't see us skew too far out wide on the direct attacks per 90. Because I think we've been a little more comfortable in the buildup. Miami's a good example too. They're kind of in the same area as us where they can hit you on the counter, but they're not a counter team. And I think this, for anything, probably this puts us in the top 5 for all of the passing per defensive action stats as well. So the press is always looking good.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of a change this year, Jake. We talked about it. This has not been the energy drink style soccer that we've seen where we're just flying around and pressing guys. I think we have more the ability now to break down teams with our buildup, which is not something that we typically saw a lot of last year. But this stat kind of shows that I will say when we are pressing, we can make it hurt. I mean, we looked at 2 of those goals that we just saw in the Kansas City game. And when you force turnover in the opposition's half, mainly even in their defensive third, we can finish the ball, but it doesn't mean that that's the only way we're going to score. I think we are seeing a lot of build-up goals, which I'm extremely happy with. It's a little bit more consistent style of soccer and not just relying on what people complained about last year, the first 5 games when we're just like getting goals handed to us. Now we're actually breaking teams down, getting nice crosses in and finishing the ball.
Agreed, man. I mean, let me see. This is the last thing, Justin. This kind of gets good into what you've already done for us, I think, on a prior episode, talking about your amount of time in a winning state, in a drawing state, and in a losing state in all the matches so far. Again, just through last match week when we played against Sporting, not this past match week. It's funny. It's not funny. We are clearly and very, very favoriting the drawing state. I think we have one of the highest in there, not the highest. A lot of other teams have played a lot of their games in the drawing state. But I do want to call out, we have a pretty good split between winning and losing as well. We haven't been winning for a lot. We haven't been losing for a lot, but we've spent about 55% of our minutes played so far this season in a draw with the other team, which is not crazy. But you would like to see us start to skew more towards that winning side because 23% of the time is not great, I would say.
No, absolutely. And I will say, yeah, we did call this out in a previous episode. Unfortunately, so the 179 minutes out of the 810 this year that we have been winning, 56 of that came in our win over New York City FC when we scored pretty early on there. I think our first goal in that was in the 34th minute. Yep. We won that game 2-0. And then unfortunately, Jake, the Real Salt Lake loss was a 67 minutes where we had been winning because I believe we had Indy score that goal in the 3rd minute. So yep. That's 123 of the 179 just within 2 games there. I'd like to see that one kind of broken out a little bit further and see that a little bit more consistently with some games. And then also similarly, minutes losing, the Austin game. We were losing for 74 minutes of that game. And that's where I really, out of our 177 total in the season, I think that really proves that this team can really grind one out if we need to get a point, which we did in that Austin game. And then obviously everybody knows that we have loved the ties. We tied for all 90 minutes of the Dallas game with a 0-0 game. Our next highest in that one was the Real Salt Lake draw at home. We were tied for 85 total minutes of that entire game as well. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it sucks. It's like kissing your sister, but we're still getting points. We're moving along. And I think the one thing that I will say as well, Jake, it's tough for, I think, our fans knowing like last year that we only had a total of 5 different ties throughout the season. Look at these percentages on some of these other teams as well. We're not alone in this. I mean, it does kind of suck, but
Justin,
when you look at this.
Look at Sporting. Bradley just put a comment here. Look at Sporting. They have spent 8% of their minutes this year losing, but they have lost a couple of games brutally. So that just tells you this isn't everything. We're just telling you some good stories here, and these are important things to consider. But like, just because you're really good at not being in a losing state does not mean you're not losing games, because they are.
The one that I wanted to call out too, Jake, is that Dallas way down there. You can barely even read it because it said they've been winning for 1% of their games. For anybody wondering what 1% would mean in these minutes, this is out of 810 total minutes. That means they've been winning for less than 10 minutes the entire season.
Oh God, just brutal. So those are the visuals. Justin, do you want to walk us through anything else visually, or
I think that the screenshot that's right down there was just what I was kind of talking through already. But otherwise, I think that was pretty much it from a visual side.
God, we just powered through it. Hold on. I got to find this out because it's going to kill me, Justin. Is the Dallas, were we ever losing against Dallas when we played them? Because I know we tied them, right?
We tied them 0-0. So that was a full 90 minutes of tied with them.
I was hoping
that adds to a lot of our ties as well.
Got it. Okay, cool. Can't be that team. All right. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed that. And obviously, we have the luxury of being able to do that when we don't have a game week. But we've got some games coming up with next Saturday at Houston. And then we have a midweek game quickly following with LAFC. So, going to be a bang type of week. I would say not this coming week, but the next week. And obviously we'll be here bringing that content for you all. Justin, I know we had some questions that you had submitted from listeners on Instagram. Do you want to lead us with those?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple of these is really on what's going on with the team, I think, and we can kind of touch on those. I know with Sam now back into practicing with the team, Amy Murr asked, does BC adjust the starting 11? That has been improving. I don't think that we're just going to throw Sam directly back into the starting 11. I think it's going to take an integration with the team to make sure that everybody's kind of comfortable with what occurred there. And I know we still don't have full insight into that. But I don't think we really need to be messing with it that much. And I do think that Sam coming off the bench in the first game back is more than likely what's going to happen. But we'll kind of touch on that a little bit more in the preview.
Yeah, I'm excited for Sam to get back integrated. And I don't really expect it to be an immediate thing. But just the fact that he makes the bench, I am enthused about, right? I mean, it's just not something you want to go without your guy that is your plan B. He's a walking, sprinting, bruising plan B. So I'm excited to have him back. I think Leuven will get integrated hopefully pretty quickly after this as well. I'm not sure your thoughts on that, but I'm excited for this. I think this pause comes at a good time. Personally, I think we're getting back on track, and Houston's going to be a tough match. And obviously we have a lot of matches coming up shortly after that. So this is a good time to get rest before these, multiple games per week kind of pile up.
Yeah, I think this was a wholesome time for the guys. If you guys haven't seen it, go out to City's Instagram or their Twitter. They had some puppies come to the practice as well. I think these guys needed a kind of week to kind of revamp, not only from a physical standpoint, but also a mental standpoint. I think it can get kind of grueling to be on the road and have a couple of these games back to back. So I think it was a big week for them. The other thing I want to kind of generally touch on, Jake, we have something from Jason and from Nolan. I'm talking about transfer windows. And I think Nolan's is more specifically doesn't think that we did enough going into the season. It's starting to show and it's going to cost us. I don't think that we really need to be that team that's like signing these big name guys like a Gareth Bale or anything like that. I mean, yeah, it'd be really exciting, but I do think that we need to trust the system that Carnell and that Lutz are kind of putting together, and that this is a team system. So I do think that we'll probably make some signings in this summer. That's what Jason has. He goes, when does the summer transfer window open? Anyone we should sign? I think we've already seen a couple different guys that we've been kind of eyeing, and we've talked about it in Scandinavian countries, guys that we haven't typically heard of, but doesn't mean they're not going to be great players. When we look at that already, like a lot of this team, I don't think anyone would have really known many of the names that are on our team now, besides like a Berkey. I wouldn't have even known a Leuven, to be honest, in my opinion. So I do think that I trust Lutz in this aspect, but I do think that we will be signing probably someone that can, I would say, more of a not renowned. I would say someone that's really goal driven and scoring and finishing. I don't think it's going to be like another Ostrak or someone's going to help with the build up like a Durkin. I really do think we're going to go after someone that is going to get some goals.
And that's a catch-22, right? Because if you are a team that just constantly is buying, you're not giving chances to your longer shots, which look at Celio, just earned a contract extension. Brennan didn't hear that. He is extended now through 2026 with an option for 2027. We picked up his option at the end of this past season to have him for another year. So now we're giving us, another 2.5 seasons at least of Celio action. So I'm glad for him. And again, that doesn't happen unless you trust the process. You develop the player, you give him minutes, and you don't just buy guys that just supplant him right away. So I think it's definitely a balance to strike. And I think so far they're doing an okay job, but I do think, at some point along the lines, you're going to need to bring in a difference maker, probably across the front three, if I had to guess. Justin, before we close out today, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our presenting sponsor of the year, Hoffman Brothers. I have got my appointment, not this week, but the next with them. Actually, no, it is this week. Yes. Okay, I'm pumped. I need to for my AC tune-up. I've had 2 units out here, and they're going to take a look at both of them, get them all washed off and cleaned, and make sure they're pumping some cold air into this house. Justin, I saw them. I think on Friday, I took off work for my son's birthday, and we just drive around St. Louis and go into some fun places like the aquarium. And I saw 4 Hoffman Brothers trucks, vans, vehicles, what have you, driving the streets of St. Louis, serving all of you and yours. And I cannot be happier to be a part of this story and to make sure that you all know that Hoffman Brothers is your home services partner of ball watching, of St. Louis City SC, and they can be reached very conveniently at 314-664-3011 or at Hoffman Bros, HOFFMANN Bros.com. I need that service, man. I need it like we need some sun after all this rain that's been happening recently, but I can't complain. The weather's been okay.
No, and it's going to be a great week this week. I will say, get outside, go for a run, get some Soul Juice. Go to souljuice.com, get 20% off using code ballwatching. Go to Deerbergs, anywhere you get your local groceries, you can get Soul Juice. And then also get to the pitch this week. I'm going to really pump it out in our preview this week because Friday night, Zach Bryan. If anybody's going to Zach Bryan concert on Thursday or Friday, the pitch is right there. Go get dinner, go get some drinks at the pitch. I'm going to do that Friday night, and then I'm going to be back there on Saturday to watch the Houston game.
Good stuff there, Justin. And thank you all for tuning in today on a Sunday. Had a lot of you all here in the live room. Been great chatting, and hopefully you all learned a little something. If anything about the goals or if anything about some of the things that we talk about as being underlying statistics. But a little bit of a deep dive today, but I encourage you all again, check us on YouTube. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the video, get this thing out to more and more people like you and I who love to learn and be more informed about the club. Can't wait to get back in a preview here, Justin, for Houston on Wednesday and break down that matchup, our first MLS matchup with them this year. We played them already in CONCACAF Champions Cup, and I think it'll be an exciting one. So until then, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you midweek. All for City.
All for City.